This is Dr. Karen, and you are listening to the De Facto Leaders Podcast on the B Podcast Network, where I share up-to-date, evidence-based practices, my own experiences, and guest interviews designed to help pediatric therapists, educators, and aspiring school leaders design services that support social, emotional, and academic growth and set kids up for success in adulthood. Whether you want to learn effective strategies for your therapy session or classroom, be an influential leader on your team, or find creative ways to use your skills to advance in your career, I've got you covered.
Hey there, it's Dr. Karen, and welcome to episode 227 of the De Facto Leaders Podcast on the B Podcast Network. This is part 2 of a 5-part series where I'm talking through the 5 skills that can form your executive functioning framework. It's also part 2 of me trying to be more concise with my podcast episodes. As I explained in the last episode, I'm doing something a little bit different on the podcast. I love to record the long form interviews and long form content, but since I started my job with the state back in 2023, it's gotten very difficult to keep up with the publication schedule. However, I love podcasting. I love creating all the content that I do, and I definitely want to keep up with it and find a way to continue to release episodes every week. I've also gotten a lot of feedback from people since I've been doing this for a while. I actually started creating content back in 2015. I started the podcast back in 2021, I believe. So there's quite a few episodes. So what I'm going to be doing is creating some shorter episodes. I will still be doing some long form content and some guest interviews because I enjoy them. So if you are interested in doing a guest interview, if you are interested in having me on your podcast or your platform, or if you have an idea for a guest that you'd like to connect me with, definitely still do it. I will still be taking advantage of opportunities to talk to amazing people. However, I will also be recording more of these shorter solo episodes as well, just to keep it bite size and consumable and really pull out some of the important concepts that have come up in the content that I've recorded or created in some way over the last, I don't know how many years. What is it, 2025 right now? It's been 10 years, which makes me feel kind of old when I think about it that way. So let's get into the topic of today. So last time I talked about time perception. So those 5 skills that I like to use to help people understand how do we actually support executive functioning. Those 5 skills are time perception, self-talk, future pacing, episodic memory, and encoding. So the reason that I like to organize it into these 5 skills is because the traditional textbook definition of executive functioning can be kind of abstract and often leads to interventions that are siloed or just incomplete. We'll say that. A lot of times people will either focus really on that very common definition of executive functioning that lists out things like attention and fluency and shifting and strategic planning, which of course are all really important skills. But sometimes those things are kind of abstract and can be kind of difficult to figure out, how do I actually fit this in to the daily activities of the clients that I'm supporting so that the interventions aren't siloed and we actually see good generalization, which, by the way, is one of the most common pain points that I hear from clinicians, teachers, educators, parents, that they're working with a student, a client, their own child on something, or their child seems to understand what they're supposed to be doing, but they don't apply it. Well, In order for them to apply it, we do need some of those therapeutic interventions, some of those things that might happen in a separate setting to prepare and front load. However, we need to make sure that support is embedded throughout the day. And that's difficult to do if we're not really sure what we're actually supposed to be working on and embedding throughout the day. So, self talk is a great way to get started with that embedded support. So when we're talking about self-talk, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's talking to yourself. Now, typically younger children tend to do this out loud. To be perfectly honest, sometimes I find myself doing this out loud, which is kind of embarrassing. You're walking through your house and you think no one's listening, and you're kind of talking yourself through what you need to do that morning, for example. But typically, we know that we do this in our heads typically. So, and you do this probably so automatically throughout the day. You're always having this internal dialogue of thinking about what you can be doing, planning. So again, it's your inner voice that something happens to you and you reflect or react to it. You might say things to yourself if something upsets you, if you see something and you remember that you have to do something. There's some internal dialogue going on. What that internal dialogue allows you to do is self-reflect, react, respond, plan for the future. So engage in that strategic planning. And then also, your self talk can impact your beliefs about yourself, your ability, and also can impact your self esteem. So, when I talk about self talk and when I teach it in some of the different strategies and protocols that I provide in some of my programs, like the School of Clinical Leadership, how I like to organize it is that there is self talk for strategic reasons. So, strategic planning, which would be the self talk you'd use when you're thinking about something that you need to do either right now or maybe further down the line. Maybe it's later today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe you're planning your entire week. And then it's also the self talk that you engage in when you are doing an activity, reacting, responding, adjusting your plan, etc. So all of those things I just mentioned, again, going back to that definition of executive functioning, the self-reflection, the working memory, the ability to shift and adjust and engage in, seeing that end goal and planning the steps, all of that requires self-talk. So if we think about what executive functioning is as the what, self-talk can be the how. How do we actually engage in impulse control and know when we should talk and respond and jump into a conversation, for example? So that's the first category of self-talk, that strategic thinking. And then the other type of self-talk obviously impacts your behavior, but that would be the self-talk about beliefs about yourself and other people and things and your ability to do certain things. And then, of course, that is going to impact your self-esteem. I hear often that people say that, kids will say things like, I can't do it, I'm stupid, all of these things, very, very self-defeating comments. And, just a lot of concerns about the self-esteem of kids who say things like that. So there's a number of reasons why they might be doing it. It might be a strategy that they've learned to get out of an uncomfortable situation. So obviously in that situation, we want to give a more productive strategy that's going to help them meet their goals. If them avoiding is going to prevent them from having an experience that's going to help them, and if avoiding that experience is going to actually create more anxiety, which many times that is the case, that avoidance actually creates more resistance and anxiety. So again, we might see the self-talk popping up there, but also they might be engaging in that self-defeating talk because maybe if they are engaging in any kind of internal dialogue, it might not be the most productive. It might be negative. So what we want to do is teach the ability to use that self-talk for strategic planning, as well as encourage those statements and those comments that are more affirming and reflective and positive. And this is actually something that I teach in the time tracking journal. So both the ability to use self-talk to plan the steps, get your materials together, evaluate as you are doing a multi-step task, but also as you're doing that task, as things are happening, to use reflective statements to in a productive, positive way. So you make a mistake, instead of saying, this means I'm dumb or I'm stupid or I can't do it, it might mean I didn't have enough information to know how to do this right. I don't have this skill yet. This is a mistake. This is normal. This is part of the process. It just means that I haven't learned this skill yet. And if I try it again, I can adjust for next time. So teaching those opportunities to take those self-defeating statements and reframe them to be more productive and accurate. And some of this is rooted in some of those techniques that you might find in cognitive behavioral therapy around things like distorted thinking, like all or nothing thinking. So, for example, well, I can't do this one task. It means I'm never going to be able to do it versus I didn't do it this one time. It's normal to make mistakes. And as I practice, I'll get better, for example. So, with cognitive behavioral therapy, a lot of times it can be challenging for kids with executive functioning challenges to take something that was done in a siloed therapy session and then apply it to a real life task. But if you can take those concepts from therapy and embed them in a real life task and do some of that reframing on the spot, then it can be more helpful and you'll be able to see that generalization. So working on self-talk can be a powerful way that we can do that. So one thing that people can do right away, and why self-talk is such a powerful thing that you can focus on when you're thinking about embedding support across the day, is that what adults can do is just start doing their own self-talk out loud. So what adults can do is they can start modeling their own self-talk out loud for strategic planning as well as self-esteem. And this is something that parents can do, teachers can do, therapists can do. They can encourage kids to do it themselves, as well as they can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start showing you how I talk to myself, and I want you to watch how I do it. So this is how I talk to myself in my head, and in order to move through my day and make sure that I'm able to get all of my things done, for example. So that's one thing that you can start to do right away. Now, you're probably starting to see that self-talk really can layer into a lot of those other executive functioning skills. And also we can use self-talk to improve our time perception, because many times when you're engaging in self-talk, you're also thinking about planning and units of time, or maybe reminding yourself to watch the time. So those skills can go together. Really, all of these skills that I'm going to be talking about in this series interact with each other. So if you want to learn more about executive functioning, if you want to learn the common mistakes that school teams often make, then I invite you to join me in a free live virtual session. It's a collaboration that I'm doing with a company called Parallel Learning that has a ton of great remote work opportunities for SLPs and other clinicians. They are actually hosting the presentation. It is for free CEUs, and the title of the presentation is Executive Functioning Beyond Checklists and Planners. And of course, the speaker for the presentation is me. So if you want to come hang out with me live, that is happening August 14th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, it is live, it is free, and it is for CEUs. Since Parallel is hosting this, they are actually able to offer CEUs because they are a CEU provider. So definitely a great opportunity to come and hang out with me live, where I will be talking through these executive functioning skills in more depth. You'll be able to ask me questions, and also you'll be able to learn more about parallel learning and the opportunities that they offer. And then, of course, get some free CEUs. So check out the show notes, and you will be able to find the link to register for that presentation. Also, if you want to learn the next steps, so On the presentation with Parallel, I will be talking through some strategies for building time perception and self-talk. But if you want to learn how to take the next step, so if you're thinking to yourself, these strategies are great, but how do I get my whole team on board? Then you'll also want to check out my free presentation on how to create a research-based executive functioning implementation plan for your school team. So this training is for school leaders, including administrators, related service providers, and teachers. All you need to do is go to drkarendudek-brannan.com/EF leadership. And that training is actually on demand, so you can watch it whenever you would like. As always, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check the show notes for the links to both of those trainings. And also, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcasts, or share this with a friend. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.